Hello, I'm Richard Bach and welcome to my world. This is one of my hats. I have a hat collection and I hope you're laughing because that's the whole purpose. It makes me happy. We're going to talk about Wisteria today. There's a couple of different varieties, but basically there's two varieties. There's the Asian variety and then there is an American variety. The Asian variety is not for the faint of heart. If you do not like to prune, if you're not willing to get up ladders and you're not willing to prune constantly, it's not for you. But if you want to take on that challenge, it is a challenge. They're invasive and they will go and take over poles and fences. So if you're not sure you're going to stay in your house for a long period of time, don't do it to the next buyer. Now I'm going to show you one behind me that I have done in a bush form. You can either put them on a trellis or a house and trim them and prune them as a vine, or you can stake them and keep them in a bush shape, which I saw at a Bucks County estate, loved it, and decided to do it. As invasive as they can be, they take about 3 years to get started. You do not want to grow one from the seed pod. You want to go out and buy one or get one with a root already on it from one of your friends or neighbors. Sleeping, creeping, leaping. The first year they're not doing much. The second year they may or may not bloom. The third year is the year it's going to take off. Most plants, shrubs are like that. Clematis definitely. It takes a year or two for the plant to put its roots out, get comfortable. They also need to be fed if you want a lot of flowering in the on your wisteria. You do not want to clip them after the middle of August because you want buds next year. So let me show you this one behind us. Okay, now when this is done blooming and they lose all their petals, it's time to clip. And what I do is I take hand shears. You can take hedge clippers and just go over it, but I take pruning shears, executors, and I just take it right back down. And within weeks, you'll be doing it again. If you it's called a hard prune, it'll bloom again. It won't bloom like this again till next spring, but you'll see blooms throughout. And that's the way you treat it in a bush form. If I didn't do this, it'd be all over that lamp, it'd be in that tree, it sends shoots out in the driveway. I have to get down on my hands and knees, get in there and get those shoots. So if you're not into the work it takes, don't have one. So this is another vine. I got at the same time from the same friend, another rooting. And I planted it here and I had it run up that wall and across the barn and it looked great. But we decided to side the barn because we didn't want to have it painted every 4 years. And then it wasn't practical to have it on the barn. So I had this trellis built that's behind me and I'm training it now. I hacked it back. I mean, I really hacked it back. And that's why it's only blooming here. I've been cutting the back side of it and I'm constantly trimming it away from the door. And I'm training it to go up this and over this trellis. It'll take about 2 years and it'll be beautiful. You can see it's moving in that direction now. I'll take ties and I'll tie it down. I have a wire fencing that I nailed to the top of the trellis. It needs some support. Once it gets going, and as the years go on, then you're pruning so it doesn't destroy the trellis. I mean, these vines can really get big and they can be powerful. So, like I said, if you love pruning, this is the plant for you. And they are beautiful. The scent from the wisteria is so heady and such a beautiful smell. The carpenter bees also love it. It attracts carpenter bees, I've noticed. Now we're going to go up and look at a different variety of wisteria, and this is the one I would recommend. This is doable. It doesn't need a lot of pruning. You can go a couple years without a lot of pruning. Just maintaining it is not as difficult. However, the flower is very different. These are long and beautiful blues. That is, the American variety is a very dark blue, and it's almost in the shape of like a heart, or it's not the same. It's beautiful, but it's not the same. It's a different look. And I have that up in the garden, so we can go do that now. I had a beautiful white trellis here for years, 20-some years, but it rotted and it had to be replaced. I have 2 vines here. I have one on the other end and one here. They're exactly the same. This is the 3rd year, and see, it hasn't moved much. This is a much slower growing wisteria. These are the buds right here. Now it's a later blooming, so it'll probably be in about a week or 2. So I'm going to train this to go up. Now on the top I have chicken wire and fencing, and I'm going to go down here and show you the one that's been here 20 years. Here's the 20-year-old vine. So it's much slower growing, and sometimes I just come along after it's done blooming and trim out here. But it's the big problem with this one are the vines down there near the ground, and they'll shoot out and run across your garden. So I'm constantly pruning that, and then it'll shoot more vines out this way and they have to be pruned. But it's still not as much work as the Asian variety. We're going to show you the trunk, and it's really kind of interesting to see what the trunk looks like. Okay, now this is the massive trunk, and it's always sending up more. You're going to have to prune a lot of this stuff out when it's young, or, you know, it'll be out here. Then there's always dead wood, so I haven't done that yet. I have to come out. And a lot of this is because we built the trellis and we had to tie it up, and it was an ordeal to take the old trellis down and build the new trellis around. But it's over, it's done, it's alive. It'll be fine, but I got to prune the dead wood out. This is a clematis vine, and a couple things to know about clematis. 1st year sleeping, 2nd year creeping, 3rd year leaping. I've had this here for 20 years. It's very happy here. Problem is, it's getting very shady with the trees coming in. So I don't know how much longer it's going to be happy here. They love shade on their roots, sun in their hair. I'll have to come out here and start tying it up, and it is, when it blooms, it is purple flowers from top to bottom. When you plant them, you want to plant them pretty deep, because every so many years, clematis wilt hits your clematis vines. If they're deep enough, it'll just kill the top. Next year, it'll come back. You know, it takes a good 3 to 5 years to get a clematis vine looking good. So you can keep adding 1 or 2 a year. You can find them in stores. Sometimes they're like $6 in a little box. But you gotta stake them, and you have to really keep them watered and baby them for a 1st year or 2. Then you'll need a trellis or an arbor, something they can grow on. Some people put them in their roses and let them go through the roses. Beautiful look. But I think you don't want the big flowering clematis for your rose areas and bushes. You want the clematis that hang like bellflowers. That really looks nice. So Gardening takes time. I mean, it's frustration. Every year, what I do this year is really for next year or the year after. And what I'm enjoying this year, I planted 3 years ago. So you keep adding. Gardens are always in flux. They're always changing. They have a lifespan. They die. You have to be willing to have patience because it's not going to happen overnight. And it has gotten pretty expensive. So if you can do cuttings or you know people that'll divide things, there are plant exchanges where you take a plant that you have too many of and drop it off and pick something else up. You can find things, and I've done it, where they're knocking things down at the end of the season. You have to use your head because it's expensive, and watering is very important, and it's certainly important for all your vines. You want to make sure they're not drying out, and you'll have beautiful things. Just go out and do it. This is Engelman Ivy, and it could take the whole countryside if you let it. It's great on top of this trellis. I love it here. It's very lush. I put chicken wire down on top of this. The main branch comes up in that corner. It comes back year after year. I take hedge clippers, clip across once in a while. The problem with this is it has berries, and the birds love them and they eat them. And you're always finding, when you're weeding your beds, you're going to find new shoots, as I also do of poison ivy, because there's vines on the farm across the road. So there's advantages and disadvantages to everything you plant. It is also very invasive. So you want to keep it isolated. It'll take your whole house in 4 years, or your barn. When we bought the property, it was all over the back and side of the barn. I had to take gardening hose and pull it off and then dig it out and spray it. But if you're willing to control it, it's a great look. I want to thank you, friends and family, for joining me today. It was great fun. I hope you enjoyed it also.